When I started programming 15 years ago, there wasn't a whole lot of places to learn. It was basically either pick up a book or reference some boring documentation site. Things are different now though, and there's thousands of different options available on the market to learn how to code. So I thought it would be fun to evaluate some of the most popular and see if they're really worth your time. Alright, 9 courses to go through, all introductory. So let's jump into it. What are we looking at today? So we've got Codecademy, introduction here. It's the Learn.js course. It is supposed to take 15 hours. Can we speedrun it? We'll see. We've got the classic, the W3 Schools tutorial. When I was first learning JavaScript, I was grinding this. We've got the foundations for the Odin Project here. This is a completely free course. I believe they're a non-profit. Don't quote me on that. We've got the learnjs.org course. We have FreeCodeCamp, which is a pretty famous one. It seems like it's going to be pretty project-based, which could be fun. We have SoloLearn, which is kind of the Duolingo of learning how to code. Could be interesting. We're going to have to see how quality the content is. App Academy, which is a full bootcamp. I found out they just have their full bootcamp curriculum available, which is pretty crazy. This is pretty crazy. So we're going to be jumping around in here and seeing how the content is. We've got CodingDojo. They have this kind of... it's hard to even call it a course. It's more of like a series of challenges to walk you through. Seems very practical to learn the basics. We'll try it out, see what I think. And then finally, the only Python course here. We have a Coursera course on Python. I tried to use JavaScript for everything because obviously it's the language that I've been using for basically my whole life, but wanted to see how this Python one sticks as well. Those are what we're going to be going through today, and the question is, where do we start? So I think a lot of people start with Codecademy, so maybe that is where I will jump in as well. All right, what is JavaScript? So initial gut check here. Obviously, we're one lesson in. But here's what I like. I like this style of course a lot for learning programming. I really like having like the lesson and like an immediate interactable console right there, a REPL environment, if you will, that lets you just kind of mess with stuff. So far, so good. Wait a second. Big int? Any number greater than 2 to the 57, less than 2 to the 7. Is this real? Wait, I thought you just integer overloaded. I thought JS didn't support these. Is this real? Wow! Look at that! I've learned something. Dude, I did not know about this. I love this. I like starting with like a practical example. Like, here is how we would do it with our current understanding. Now, this is exactly how you should do it. Great work, Codecademy. This is exactly how you should teach this. You talk first about like, hey, here's some problem that you can solve with what you already know. Then they talk about, an actual implementation. Here's some code. You might write this to solve this, right? And then they say, what if you wanted to do it 3 times? And you start to see it's a little bit of a pain in the ass, right? I like it. I like the visual as well. It's very pretty. Very pretty. This is like the classic explanation, right? So, classic explanation. Arrays in JavaScript are 0 indexed, meaning the positions start counting from 0 rather than 1. Therefore, the first item is 0. So this is true, of course. Of course, they're right. There's such a good explanation for why this is the case. Because, like, when you first learn programming, right? If you're like me, and you're self-teaching this stuff for the first time, you're sitting here, and you're like, why are they 0 indexed, right? That seems like a stupid decision. Why would you start counting in 0? It doesn't make any sense. And leaving those like questions up in the air sucks. It sucks, right? Maybe some learners will just accept it, but I know this is like deeply unsatisfying to me. Here's what I think. I think the only gripes I had with it in my short time were nitpicks. I think that generally speaking, the way that they explained stuff was good. They hinted at deep underlying actual JavaScript features. They explained complex things in a way that was very digestible without lying, which I think is hard to do. I think a lot of the time, you end up explaining harder parts of the language by just lying about how stuff works. Like the classic, everything in JavaScript is an object, which I'm sure we'll see today. I'm sure we'll see it. So I think they avoided those pitfalls, which is very good. What I do think is I think they could have gone deeper in some areas. Maybe for optional lessons. I get this is supposed to be purely introductory. But I just think it's so valuable to learn some underlying mechanisms early on, like why indexes start at 0. And honestly, candidly, I would be very surprised if any of these courses explain that well. So I'm putting it in S tier. It'll be our first S today. Maybe we'll reorder it later, seeing how the rest of the stuff goes. But overall, I was very impressed. I thought it was very good. All right, next up here, we've got App Academy. We're going to do that next. We're just going in the order of the tier list. App Academy. What I will say, just immediately jumping into this, like, as a product developer too, right? As someone who's developing a product every day, the actual, like, learning management system here just gets gapped. Just gets gapped by Codecademy. It's just not even close. This is just such a subpar one compared to what Codecademy is bringing forward. That one's just way more user-friendly. I think having the REPL like constantly there is awesome. Indexing a string. Too soon. Too soon. Way too soon. Hitting them with this way early on is a mistake. I really liked the way Codecademy did this. They waited until they taught you about arrays. Gives you a great opportunity to talk about this. Overall, I like that explanation. What it's missing for me is a visual. This visual. Throw a box. Put the number 10 in it. Call it dog age. Showing people this box early on helps so much with learning other things. So I think they're missing out on an opportunity here. If you're watching App Academy, you can use the drawing. So my take is I would not explain this way. I think the way that Codecademy did it was really smart. They started by teaching you, first of all, you had way more reps, right? You had way more checks for understanding in prior lessons. They talked about different topics earlier on and saved functions for later. Then you have this like repertoire of all of these different ideas floating around here, right? And different ways that you've solved problems using like console log and a silly REPL. Now you can just reach for one of those problems and go, like, imagine if someone asked you to do this 100 times. And then like the use case for functions becomes really obvious. I think teaching functions this early on, you're missing that. Like this is the first function we've ever seen. And the way we're doing it is we write a function. We're introducing you to, parameters. We're introducing you to the return statement. Man, there's so many better ways to do this. Like, first of all, I think you want to introduce people to these concepts way slower. One chunk at a time, which I really liked how Codecademy was doing that, for example. And then second here, I think there's a huge opportunity to just use like a way better real world example. I liked Codecademy's one, for example, where you can like reach for a prior exercise they did. Hey, wouldn't this suck to do like 100 times? Watch this function. It lets us only do it once. Array? We don't know what this is. What? We talk loops and then we talk arrays? That seems very backwards to me, by the way. Like hitting this lesson first and then this lesson is not it. The index is a traditional word for a variable that keeps track of how many times you... What do you mean? What do you mean it's a traditional word? Sure. Sure, like, yeah, we do call them indexes, I suppose. Indices have started at 0 for a long time, and for good reason. It's easier to use loops with an index of 0. Oh my gosh, man. This is bad. This is bad. Surely we can think of more practical examples than the alphabet. Surely we can think of a list of things that we might want to put that is not the alphabet, right? You've got something, and you're gonna now refactor it. The requirements have changed, which I'm into the idea of. But the way it's executed here is so silly. It's so silly to me. These are different problems, right? What I think would be great is like, here's some problem that you originally solved in the first exercise here. Here is an extension of that problem. I've drawn this exact same diagram 600 times, and now it's a face. What do we think? But some of these are just straight up different problems. There's no reason to refactor. It's like a bad lesson, right? You have this problem that you solved and this other problem, which is a different problem now. Why would you change your solution? Why wouldn't you just create a new function? Very silly. Man, I am so surprised by how bad this has been. This has not been good. I don't like this course. Guys, I'm losing it. I am losing it. There's so many opportunities to make this course like so much better, so obviously too. Like multi-dimensional arrays. My pin size has reduced in size. I'm losing it, guys. I'm losing it. Multi-dimensional arrays. Start with the why. Everything should start with the why. Whenever you're learning something, start with the why. Why am I learning this? What problem does this solve for us? It's so useful. You can start to think about, like, when people are learning things, right? What the best way to learn things, in my opinion. Obviously, this is my take. Maybe you take this course and it works for you, and I hope it does. When people are learning things, though, the most important thing is that they understand. Okay, I don't know why it resets my pen size. The most important thing is they understand some problem. So up here, there's some problem to solve, right? And then what you do is you like think through, okay, how might we solve this with what we know now, right? So there's this solution over here, maybe, with what we know now, right? And then you can start to poke holes in it, right? Like, how would we solve this with what we already know? It would become a huge problem. It would become a huge pain in the butt, or maybe it's not possible at all. And then you introduce this concept, in this case, multi-dimensional arrays, as like this shining beacon of hope. And then tie it back to the problem, why it solves it, right? No. Instead, when we store arrays of elements, we refer to those as multiple arrays. The depths of this array is 2. Instead, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H. No reason. Here you go. Okay, I've seen enough, candidly, with their intro. I know where I'm going to put this. Before I do, though, I want to jump into some of their later stuff. Reason being, I've heard good things about App Academy. I really have. First-hand accounts from people that I know and respect that swear that it's good. So what am I missing? Because this has been bad so far. This is very good. Right here. I like this. So I'm seeing some of their more advanced curriculum is better. Okay, I've made my decision. I've seen enough. So here's what I think about App Academy. We're talking exclusively about their introductory curriculum here. It's very bad. I would be surprised if I see a worse one today. And that includes W3 schools, which is like basically a wiki page, right? It's very bad. I don't like the way they taught stuff. They taught it out of order. They didn't tie anything back to like practical examples. Just a lot of missed opportunities to explain things better. They introduced concepts after they've already started using stuff. Overall, very, very poor, to be candid. It was very, very poor introductory stuff. But what I will say, I'm going to put them in no-go because this is exclusively talking about their introductory content, which is bad. Don't take them for introductory stuff. What I will say, They're more advanced curriculum. I took a peek at their data structure course. I took a peek at their stuff on JWTs, hashing. That stuff is pretty good. I think it's solid. It's certainly good enough, especially at the price of free. We didn't get pushed at all to buy anything. So what I'll say is, if you already know the basics and you just want to like grind web development, learn how to build a full stack app, I would put their curriculum on that in like B, high B maybe, high B for that stuff. I thought it was better. Still some opportunities to improve it. I didn't fully evaluate it. Maybe some of their stuff even creeps into A here. But yeah, for basics, dude, if you're just learning programming for the first time, don't take their stuff. It was really bad. Insanely bad. Like, so many good opportunities to make it better. CodingDojo. This introduction, which is like, I guess, their bootcamp prep. So like before you jump into the full thing, you go and you take this. And I already completed one. But it's just like purely a REPL environment, and you're supposed to get the output of the following code. It's hard for me to fully evaluate this because it's not really teaching you things, right? It's more evaluating your ability to do things. Like maybe you go take a good course on Introduction to JavaScript, and then you come here and you just like check your understanding and make sure you've got all your ducks in a row, which is, I think, largely what their goal is here. I don't think it's supposed to teach you anything. I think it's supposed to check your understanding. I think it probably would be better if you were like writing code yourself instead of guessing the output. But overall, I think it's fine. I think it's fine. So I'm going to put it, I think this is the definition of for some. If you've already learned what you need to learn about the basics of JavaScript and you just want to check it, they got those like free exercises. Worth checking out. I think that there's probably better ones out there. But largely what they're setting out to do, I think they achieve. So the next one is Coursera's course on Python. Yeah. Let's talk about use cases. I'm a fan. As someone who does not write Python every day, I didn't know this. This is cool. My favorite thing to do to Python developers is to hit them with like a classic example, right? Like you have some if statement. If thing equals other thing, right? Or sure. If this and this. Let's yoink it, right? And you throw the colon if my Python syntax isn't too rusty. And it like does default indentation for you, which is really nice. But what's silly about Python is the indentation actually doesn't matter. Like you can do this code will still run completely fine. Isn't that goofy? It'll run completely fine. All that matters is that it's consistent. So as long as the next line is the same amount of indentation, it'll work. It's a very silly thing to dunk on Python programmers for, but I like to do it. I don't love Python. I don't like the idea of indentation to determine scope of things. I just think it's too easy to choke. But that's not what this is about. My Python gripes are out the window. I'm here to evaluate, as a former instructor myself, how the courses are. And overall, Coursera has been pretty good so far. Like, I think that they tie stuff back to practical examples where it makes sense. They introduce stuff fairly mellow, at a good pace. Talk about things in a way that, like, logically makes sense. What I'm curious about is how do they explain more complex topics? It's important to remember Python indexes start at 0. I don't think we'll see a single course that explains this well. We haven't so far. Why? Why does this start at 0? This is going to be my gripe with every course we take. I would say this course, again, I haven't watched the videos, so it's kind of hard for me to fully rate. I'm going to give it an A, though. I think it's solid. I think they're missing some opportunities to, one, have a better platform. Like, Codecademy's platform is just goated, dude. The fact that when I'm learning how to code, there's like the content, the REPL environment, and the console right there, and I can just try stuff as I'm learning is so nice. So it has that natural advantage. But then the other thing I think Codecademy does well is I think it ties concepts together better. I think it It leads you to the water really, really nicely. And it's tying them back to a lot of the time, like real world, more practical examples, which is tight. I like that. FreeCodeCamp. Let's do it. OOP, functional programming. This is it. They're going to talk about monads. Are you excited? So the way they're teaching you all these basic things is like all of these concepts, they're tying back to this idea like, hey, we're going to do this thing with them, which is cool. I like that. Keeping it very project focused is a great way to learn. Those variables is a variable points to a specific memory. They're doing it. They're starting with the memory address. Oh, I hope they nail the lists. They're so close. This is the setup for it. This is what I would do when I teach. Overall, I think this is very good. Like, it's very, very focused on like this end target goal, and I think it walks you through things slowly at a good pace. It seems like everything I've seen, I've liked the explanation of it. I love when you learn a concept and immediately go implement it in some code. Love that. And where does this start? Here's a preview of... yes, this is so good, guys. This is so good. So, like, why this is so good is it's like focusing on this end goal. And that means everything you learn throughout this entire section will be like pointing towards this end. Right? You'll be thinking about, okay, how does this tie in to the game we're making it? I think game development is like the best way to learn. I think it's way easier to tie programming concepts back to game development like very, very quickly. And immediately like think about how they're applicable. So I love this. This is great. Algorithms and data structures is a bit disingenuous, right? Like it doesn't look like you finish this course and then go jump on LeetCode. Probably not, right? But you can finish this course and go build some cool front-end stuff. Which I think, like, for introductions, getting straight to like super practical stuff and not spending a bunch of time in theory where it doesn't make sense is great. This might be the best course so far. It might be the best course so far. I think I'm ready to give it the number one. I'm going to say that is my number one recommendation. I think it's the right way you should learn the language. Very project-based. Everything seems tied super close to reality. They check for understanding super regularly. The way that they walk you through stuff, I didn't have any gripes with. Maybe I would tweak some small things. You know, we've got my classic gripe with indices. Overall, though, I'm a fan. To the next one. LearnJavascript.org. So I found this one during research. Never heard of it before. Code. So they do just intro you to var here and then use exclusively const going forward. So yeah, like this seems just like something they should fix, right? Like overall the content's not bad so far. That just seems like a mistake really to me. Just some immediate thoughts, right, that I think they're missing out on. Like, you're new, right? You're just learning JavaScript if you're taking this. What are these? You got no idea, right? You got no idea. Like, you're probably not too worried about it, but I'm here to nitpick. That's what I'm here for. So far, the course, like, is not great, but it's, like, you could probably, that first lesson, you could put it in. It's just a few yards away from being solid. Structures, you have a constant time lookup. You know where the index is. Crazy to mention it, although it's true. Constant time lookup. They got no idea what that means, right? I'm just learning JavaScript. Maybe like the target audience here isn't someone who's just learning JavaScript. The way this course is written is it's written like you're teaching JavaScript to someone who has written other programming languages. If you just finish your comp sci degree and you come and take this course, it's probably a good pick. Because you kind of get it, right? You already kind of get how things are supposed to flow. You know what some of the terms are. It's just giving you some like quick intros to things. This course is for some. And who it's for is you. If you already know other languages and you've written a lot of it, right? Maybe you were a C# developer in the past. You've been writing C# at some company for years. And you're about to start working with JavaScript on a new project for them. You've never written JavaScript before. This is probably the best option. It's just pure basics. Let me tell you about JavaScript. We'll teach you what's weird really fast. Not a good option for beginners, though. Not a good option for beginners. Glazes over stuff too fast that I think would absolutely throw you for a loop if you've never written any code before. If JavaScript's your first language, don't take this course. All right, Odin Project. I've heard really good things about the Odin Project. So I think the context with the Odin Project is like this is some non-profit organization that just gives all this away for free. Yeah. Funded by the community. How cool. And it's all open source too, from what I understand. Which is rad. Very rad. Like, this explanation is good, but we haven't talked about what functions are yet. And again, I really don't like introducing all of these concepts at the same time. It seems mostly like what a lot of they're doing is like aggregating things together. Which I don't hate, right? Like, it's a free resource. It's free. And you're never going to get upsold a single time. But I would prefer if you keep as much of it in-house as possible. What this is missing to me is I just think, like, the explanation is good on reference types versus primitive types. But I think there's ways to explain things where you explain a primitive type as, like, some variable that's holding the value. So here's our primitive type. And you explain the reference type as some variable here that's storing a reference to the value. So when you pass the reference, you're passing what's in this container, which is just a reference to that data, right? Which is why when you change it, it changes both. Think there's a better explanation? Not bad though. Here it is. Let's see. What are we learning? What are we learning? No! No! It's like bottom of solid for me. The Odin Project is very cool. I like what they're doing. I like that they're aggregating all these things together. I do think you're going to run into a lot of different teaching styles as you go jump to these different resources that they're aggregating together. But it's free. They're not going to upsell you. You stay in one ecosystem. And they teach two separate stacks, which is really cool. So you can probably take both tracks, learn two things. I think that's rad. Biggest downsides for it, again, is that you're going to have to jump around to different resources that are going to have different teaching styles. I think that hurts it. And then all of these here have better in-platform exercises, thumbs up, that I think are really good for when you're first starting out. I think the kind of exercises that are in the Odin Project are going to be better when you're learning like Node and stuff, and building it on your own machine is probably better. But having an in-browser REPL is just great for learning. All right, let's talk about SoloLearn. SoloLearn is kind of putting itself as like a Duolingo style learning, right? It's like little bite-sized chunks. Want me to just close the button? Oh, what the... On click. Oh, I see. Okay, so the first one is on click. The second one is button. Fantastic. Weird. Dude, just weird to teach though. Like, they're teaching syntax here. It just feels very early. Very, very early to me is my feedback. There's no way this is the question, dude. Which name is a better variable that stores the account balance? City or balance? I'm sure it's city. Let's see what happens when I lose a heart. Wow. Depressing. You're not going to get good quality practice using this platform. I hate to say it. You're not going to get good quality practice using this platform. The hearts thing is kind of interesting. My take is if you want to really learn how to code, pick a platform that makes you write code. What I think this is for, though, is for people who don't actually want to become a developer, but just kind of want to learn a little bit of it, right? Remember, our tier list is we are rating for someone who wants to learn how to write code, wants to learn the language. I think it's bad. Yeah, maybe it's for some, but it's not for me. I would not recommend this to someone looking to learn how to code. Only case where this would make sense is if you don't ever want to use what you're learning. You don't care about using it. If you don't care about using it, go for it. Use SoloLearn. All right, let's finish it up. W3 Schools. Kind of these two platforms in one. There's like an exercise platform that they built in ASP.NET, respect, and the tutorial platform. So like they've got this variable thing, and you probably work through one by one. How do they talk about objects? I like it. I like what I'm seeing. This is what I've been talking about, folks. I have been talking about this. I love it when you tie stuff to real world examples. Look at that. There's a car. It's a Fiat 500, 850 kilograms, white. It's a small car. And you can start to talk about methods too. How cool is that? You have a list of items, list of car names, for example. Storing them in a single variable could look like this. This is good. This is good. We've been talking about this in other pretty good courses, that it's really good to start with, hey, here's some problem, space. Give me a naive example, which is what we have here. It's a nice naive example of how we might solve this with what we currently know. And then look, here's our raise to save the day. Again, this is really good. This is really good. Start with some example of how we'd solve a problem with what we already know. This sucks, right? So instead of writing that, let's do this. And then let's walk you through it. So much better. I'm going to go top of A. I think it is content-wise very similar in quality to these two. But what it's lacking is mostly in the platform itself. I think these two are just way better, all-encompassing learning experiences for you if you're writing code for the first time. So here is the final list. Again, the context here is someone who has never written a line of code before and wants to eventually become a developer. What is the best introduction course to take? Right? Again, some of these can be for you if you have some different goals in mind, right? If you're a project manager and you never want to write a line of real code, SoloLearn could be an option. Take some stuff on the train. If you're an existing developer and you've already written a bunch of code in another language, maybe you go to Learn.js and just do a quick brush up. But for me, if you want to learn the language, I was by far the most impressed. Or rather, if you want to learn to code, for me, the two I was the most impressed with by far were FreeCodeCamp and Codecademy. And I really, really think what's giving FreeCodeCamp the edge is that it was just so project-based. I think that's so exciting. When something's project-based, you've got this like North Star in mind that you're always targeting, you're always chasing. That's what I've got to say. That's the list.